Coined and used in a different context. But looking at the audience today, I do believe that we do have a hearty appetite for stories that the food carries, connecting places, people, cultures, and of course, sharing experiences. And what better way to embark on this culinary journey than with the master storyteller who would be, guiding us through a voyage across centuries. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm applause and welcome our guest speaker for today, Professor Pushpesh Pant sir. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be welcoming you, sir. And I'm aware that you are under the weather, but you have given us your time, your presence, and you've accepted Director General National Museum's request to be part of our NM lecture series for the year 2025. So a very warm welcome once again, sir. सर के बारे में कुछ कहना सूरज को दीपक दिखाने जैसा होगा, बट थोड़ा गुस्ताखी मैं कर ही लेती हूँ आज. Born in 1946 in a small Himalayan town, sir was initially homeschooled. Subsequently, he acquired degrees in history, international relations, and law. Having taught over the past half century at the University of Delhi, the JNU and the North Campus University, sir, as a prolific bilingual author and a TV anchor, has published over 50 books on cuisine, culture, religion, and foreign policy. His writings have graced publications such as Forbes, Open, Outlook, The Times of India, and The Tribune, where he delves into the historical narratives embedded in culinary traditions. His acclaimed books, including the cookbook, which was published in 2011, were recognized by the New York Times as one of the year's best cookbooks, offering 1,000 recipes that span the diverse culinary landscape of India's state, each dish a testament to the country's vibrant heritage. His contribution to the field of food history have been honored with the Padma Shri in the year 2016 by the Government of India and was conferred honoris causa D.Lit by ITM University Gwalior in the year 2024. Of course, a reflection of his enduring impact on Indian culture and gastronomy. A warm welcome once again, sir. Just to give a gist about the lecture that is scheduled for today, the talk will explore iconic Indian dishes like modak, kheer, halwa, khichadi, pulav, biryani, alongside the influence of European foods through historical artifacts like sculptures and paintings. His lecture will be an illustrated journey exploring the aesthetic allure of food immortalized in art and celebrating timeless embrace of art and food, while appreciating how Indian cuisine has been enriched by diverse influences, revealing an untold story of globalization driven by Indian centuries before Christ. So I would now request and invite our Director General, sir, to kindly address the audience and also welcome our guest with a replica of Sarnath Buddha.
Respected Professor Pushpesh Pant ji, the speaker for National Museum monthly public lecture. Professor Pushpesh Pant is a very well-known art critic, scholar, also the food historian and whatnot. And all of you know very well about him. So going to detain you for being an intruder in between you and the speaker today. I welcome wholeheartedly, along with my colleagues of National Museum and Indian Institute of Heritage. I welcome you, sir, and we hope to hear very interesting talk on encountering Indian food in art and sculpture. In fact, I had been associated with the excavations in the country for a very long time, and I have excavated no less than 20 archaeological sites. And every time when I encountered the pottery, I found the residue in it, but unfortunately, we were not able to get it scientifically analyzed. Sometimes it seems that those pots contain milk, sometimes curd, sometimes honey, or other things. But it's high time that residue analysis, as has been started in other parts of the world, should also be a part of our investigative research. So I once again welcome you, sir, for NM Public Lecture, and I thank all of you for coming and going to listen to the learned speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I must begin by thanking the Director General, Dr. Mani, for his very kind invitation for me to come and talk to this audience in the National Museum. I consider this a great honor, a privilege, although I'm very sure that I don't quite deserve it. It will become clear as I go along and babble that why I don't deserve it. And then you may as well ask then what emboldens me to come here. I think I must apologize at the outset for trespassing into the terrain of scholars, specialists, art critics. The DG sir was very kind to refer to me as an art critic or a historian. I think I am neither. I mean, I recall partially a verse from Bhartrihari's Vairagya Shatakam where he says, Vidya Anadikata Kalanka Rahita. In my tragedy in life has been personal that I have neither been a scholar nor a serious researcher. And there are people sitting here I greatly respect and admire, including Dr. Mani himself, Vijay Kranti ji here, जिनका जीवन एक तपस्या में बीता है, who have pursued their passion, whether it's archaeology or photography or documentation, as a passion. In my case, unfortunately, the passion turned into an obsession very early in life. And that was food. And I became possessed by food and I could think nothing beyond food. So actually there was a joke when I was in Jawaharlal Nehru University, some colleagues would to say, इनको international relations पढ़ाने को किसने यहाँ छुट्टा छोड़ दिया है, ये तो प्रोफेसर बिरयानी है, इनको प्रोफेसर खाना सूझता है. But then you see what happens is, what emboldened me to come here is that this great institution has its doors open for scholars and ignorant laymen alike. Young and old can walk through its portals, go through the galleries, and enrich themselves, soaking up what our cultural heritage is. Not only food, the sculpture, the artifacts, the bronze castings, the paintings. And ever since I was a child once, and now I'm almost on the threshold of 80. And when my mother brought me to the museum for the first time, my mind was blown. And I still cannot resist the temptation. When I was walking, there was a pick up one, it is free, a puzzle. A pick this up, this is a painting. And this is what is so beautiful. I mean, I've been kindly enough gifted a Sarnath Buddha's head today. I recall collecting 3, 4, 5 of these in different materials, stone, other things, lighter versions, because you took it home from the museum and it gave you so much peace. So this is what I think emboldened me to say yes to this, realizing that I'm not quite the person who should be giving a talk. So where do I begin and how do I begin? The tradition in India is that all good auspicious things begin with Shri Ganeshaya Namah. So I shall do nothing better but say Shri Ganeshaya Namah and request Rige to, when you say Shri Ganeshaya Namah, what happens? You see the statue of a pot-bellied god. In this one, he is standing. In most statues, you can see him sitting on his favorite mount, skinny mouse. But what is unmistakable always is that his trunk leads the eyes to a hand where modaks are held. Now that's interesting. You have modaks in North Indian versions of Ganesh's iconography. You have laddus, round laddus. And you go south of Narmada, you have them in modaks, small pouches which are steamed, and the laddus are different. And their shape is different, the filling is different, but the god is the same. Now again, when you think in terms of Ganesh, he is also the removal of obstacles, but he is also the Ganesh, the Vinayak Nayak of the Ganas of Shiva, and probably dates back to pre-Vedic Hinduism, where these gods were incorporated, and you have a very interesting things. So I would like to begin with this one and say that when we look at this, that there is, it was very good to say that the talk would be exploring certain dishes. I think that I would strive not to explore dishes, but to explore certain themes which are continuity, coexistence, harmony, and the philosophical lessons which depiction of food gives us. I must apologize once again. I had thought of this as a more ambitious program till I realized that I had bitten up more than I can chew. I got under weather, got typhoid, fell down, almost broke my knee. So this is a half-baked work which I am inflicting on you this afternoon. Please bear with me. So I would say that another image, we'll go to the next one, which haunts me is Krishna in Tanjore paintings. These Tanjore paintings are again different works of art on glass plates embellished with gold leaf, reverse painted reverse. And you have the next one, please. The Krishna's favorite thing is his matka of butter and milk and honey. And this is what makes you think that what an important role milk and dairy produce has played in our lives. From times immemorial, if you go back to the Vedic times, you come back to the Puranic times, and you have doodh and dahi. And India was known as a country of milk and honey, especially the province of Punjab. And this has continued to this date. It is auspicious, it is sattvic, it has various products. It could be khoa, fudge, it could be chaach. And you would see that why is he so happy with his matka of dahi? It could be kheer sadam in South India. It could be chena mithai in Bengal. It could be the chakki and the shikhand in Maharashtra. All these would be, it would be hard to think of a anaj-based sweet in India. So once I was toying with the idea of trying to encounter the history of India in 11 recipes and 21 ingredients. So I thought the most important thing was Makhan Mishri. And again, if you have Makhan, and we are discussing in your rooms at the Vrindavan Museum, and where you have Ras Khan saying, Jahi ahir ki chohariyan chachiya par chach par naach nachawe. Now, he was a princeling of sorts, Nandlal ho ya Vasudev ho, and you have a very interesting story that what related everybody to common was chach. So, agar chach tha, तो it becomes a metaphor कि वो was the Lord incarnate in his form as a small baby, playing pranks, doing this. So again, you have the Makhan, and you have the Makhan Misri, and you have the Malayo in Banaras, and you have the Daulat ki chaat much later in Delhi, and you have Nimish in Lucknow, all a form of milk. And Nimish, incidentally, there are enough scholars in the room, is 1/8 of a blink of an eye. Nimish matre, utne mein wo form baith jayega. So this is what you have, the milk and the Krishna. The next one, please. Now this is an interesting one where you have Radha Krishna feeding each other and food is in the foreground. Now this is a much later painting, but it depicts things which are, to use the Jewish word, kosher for India. कि क्या सात्विक है, क्या आप खा सकते हैं, क्या आप नहीं खा सकते हैं, क्या पोल्यूट करता है, क्या प्योरिटी का सिंबल। अगर आप देखेंगे तो इसमें भी बहुत सारे मिल्क प्रोड्यूस आपको नजर आ रहे हैं, मगर कुछ चीज़ें मिल्क प्रोड्यूस के अलावा भी हो सकती हैं जो आप उनको आइडेंटिफाई करने की कोशिश कर सकते हैं। कुछ अगर आप देखें तो इसमें आइटम वाइज आप देखें तो आपको यहाँ भी लड्डू नज़र आ रहे हैं, यहाँ पे कुछ ये परपति जैसी नज़र आ रही है, यहाँ पे फिर कुछ फल नज़र आ रहे हैं, केले वेले हैं। तो ये आप सारी चीज, आई एम नॉट ट्राइंग टू सजेस्ट दैट द फूड हैज रिमेन कांस्टेंट. And the other interesting thing is that when you encounter in depiction of Indian food in a painting which might date back to 17th century, 18th century, it is not as if the painter has put from his memory or his recall of the contemporary food that on the picture. He has a reference. He goes back to a thing. But before we go ahead, the next one on the Krishna theme, please. This again is a very interesting thing. This is a Natwara Pichwai, and it has a dark Krishna. And when I was collecting this for the talk, Tanmay, my friend who works with me, said, Krishna to सांवले थे, वो इतने काले कैसे हो गए? But for that you have to realize that is a statue carved in black stone in Natwara. And again, this is not the Bal Gopal Krishna of the Tanjore paintings, not the prankster, the milkmaid ones. It is almost on the way of becoming the Dwarkadish. And the food for him, as you can see, is a variety of food. This is, of course, you can keep counting and keep trying to identify. But the concept here is that the Lord is being fed Chappan Bhog. And the Chappan Bhog was almost much before NDTV became 7 into 8 NDTV. दिन के 8 प्रहर और उसमें 7 बार जो उनकी अर्चना हो रही है, उनको धूप दिया जा रहा है. And you have Chappan Bhog. And Chappan Bhog is something like the computer memory. It is not Chappan Bhog. It's much more than Chappan in number, because you have Shad Ritu, and each Ritu of 2 months the Bhog changes. The time of the day the Bhog changes. The age of the Lord the Bhog changes. Is he an adolescent? Is he a young man? Is he a prince? Is he a king? Or is he a Bal Gopal? So you have this extremely interesting concept of Chappan Bhog changing seasonally, and also the whole frame of reference कि क्या वो खाएंगे क्या नहीं खाएंगे. Obviously he doesn't eat Chappan dishes at one time, but you have this thing multiplied. So multiply 56 by 6 ritus and the special puja and archana, and you will know that what this concept is. This I think is an interesting one, which is outside the Krishna theme. The story is well known. This is a painting by Raja Ravi Varma. This is Vishwamitra spurning Menaka, who had seduced him to beget the child, and says, get lost, take the child away, it is mine, but I don't want to see your face. But the story is being told enough times, so the complete story doesn't have to be retold in detail. But the idea was that Vishwamitra was performing very strong austerities, and Menaka, deployed by Indra to make him stray from the path of virtue, put some halwa on his lips. And the rest is, as they say, history. He liked the sweet taste of the halwa. He liked the touch of the young maiden's fingers on his, and of course lost all the virtue which he had acquired. But we come to that. This is interesting for a story, because we are told by food historians that halwa came to India with Arabs, even before the advent of Islam. So they came from Arabia, and halwa came by that route. Did you realize that this halwa, whatever was Menka was feeding Vishwamitra, was an avle? And there is another avle which is very famous in Indian tradition, is the Chavanaprash avle, which again is another story of a old rishi married to a king's young daughter, trying to regain his vitality and win vitality in a rejuvenative tonic food is the Chyawanprash, avle. So avle is what was in Indian tradition the real halwa, and we have forgotten all about that. Should we have the next one, please? Now this one is an interesting picture. Now you'll forgive me, we are not going chronologically. I am going by what struck me as worthy of comment at a particular time. Now this is Ram and Lakshman and Sita in forest exile. Now you see, it's very interesting. For a long time I thought it was Sita Kuram, till I realized that it was pointed out to me again by Pant, Sita तो ऊपर बैठी हुई हैं, इनके ये लंबे से बाल हैं, आप जो देख रहे हैं, और ये बेचारे जो खाना पका रहे हैं, बेचारा शायद नहीं कहना चाहिए, he was a very doting, loving, brother loving person, लक्ष्मण ने. जो लक्ष्मण खाना पका रहे हैं वो इंटरेस्टिंग है. अगर आप इसमें नज़र डालें तो ये एक सीख है, इट्स अ स्क्यूअर. उसमें जो ये कबाब हैं, ये बोटी कबाब कह लीजिए, सीख कबाब कह लीजिए, वो साफ साफ कबाब हैं. और ये भी देयर इज दिस मिथ that the kebabs came to India with Turko-Afghans and the Muslims and so on and so forth. But we have a very strong tradition of Rajputs hunting and shule. The skewer is a mini suli, जिस पे चढ़ाया जाता था आदमी को, painful death for him. And these are the shules. So these you see happening. And there is a kadhai-like pot here. So which means कि ये grill हो रहे हैं या हांडी में बनने वाले हैं या both process है, ये बोटी कबाब बनने जा रहा है. We can only speculate. There are other things here which are condiments, and there is other things which tell you the sword and this thing. Kul milake, there is a dead animal here on the land. So you have the tradition of royal princes going to forest as exile and as hermits, but not necessarily becoming vegetarians. So they continue. Maybe have the next one, please. This again is a jump in chronology. This is from Ajanta, and I believe there's a fantastic Ajanta gallery here, which I must make amends as soon as I come back here the next time in slightly better health and spend time. This shows a three-masted boat being propelled by wind as well as by oarsmen, taking a journey to Southeast Asia. Now these journeys had started in the 2nd century before Common Era, and then they continued almost till 11th century till the reign of the great Cholas. And these are the documentation of voyages across seas to bring spices from Moluccas, from cinnamon from Sri Lanka, and even further. But it was not only an exchange of food and flavors, it was an exchange of ideas. The Indian ideas of kingship, the Indian ideas of Shiva Buddhas, the largest Buddhist stupa is Borobudur in Indonesia. The largest Hindu temple is Angkor Wat in Cambodia. You have Ayutthayas not only in Myanmar, Burma, but also in Ayutthaya in Sri Lanka and also in Thailand. You have the kings who call themselves Rama 1, Ram 2, Rama 3. But the whole point is that this we seem to have forgotten. There is no specific food shown depicted in this picture. But you can speculate that how did people survive on months-long voyages in pre-steamship days or airfare on these boats? What did they eat? So did the achar or sambal or preserved food or fermented food date back to this period? Dr. K.T. Achaya is of the view, of course, I don't agree with most of Dr. K.T. Achaya's views, but this one I thought was very interesting, that he says that the first reference you have to idli is in Indonesian literature, where it is compared to a fermented round pancake, which looks like a full moon cake. You have something like idiyappam, which are string hoppers in Sri Lanka, and you have idiyappam in Kerala. So you have these noodles, and you start speculating that there are fantastic stories which Marco Polo tells about whether he took the noodles from China to Italy, or Italy had a pasta of its own. But we are not getting into the pasta debate here. I'm more interested in how did these voyages change our food. So, of course, we had lots of spices in Kerala itself. People came to trade with that. But then you also see that if you are in Kerala and if you go to Cochin, you have on the coast cantilevered fishing nets. They are called the Chinese fishing nets. And in Cochin, you also have the wooden pagodas which almost replicate the temples of Hainan and so on. You also have a very interesting thing called the appam, which is cooked on a earthen clay vessel, which is called China chatti, which means the vessel came from China. Now, this is not a question of whether it came from China or didn't come from China, what we gave to China, what China gave to us. It is a pre-border conflict days. It is the days when people did not know each other very well. We were removed by oceans, and we sort of encountered each other and exchanged things. And like in Kalidas's plays, you have Kiran Shuk, silk coming from China. You have from India, gems, jewels, sandalwood going there. And then you have these boats which, without depicting food, make you think about how these must have transformed the food. The next one, please. Time I suppose to shift from paintings to relieve the monotony to objects which are more durable. And this is the statue of Annapurna. Normally, Annapurna is a very small sized statue, but it's interesting that you find it in several places. Annapurna, Sarapurna, and very fond of Shiva. And you see a ladle in her hand to dole out food with. And the story is very interesting. That Annapurna was in Kailash with Mahadev Shiva, and Shiv one day unwittingly angered her by saying her, what do? You just have to feed people. You don't have to look after the rest of the world, the Laya Pralaya, the Anand Tanda, the other Ugra Tanda, and so on. But she got upset and she went to Kashi. And she went to Kashi and people started saying, oh, we are dying of famine. And there was no food. So Shiva, humbled, had to go back to Kashi, seek forgiveness. And then Annapurna's temple is now next to the Vishwanath temple. Now, the interesting part is that the Annapurna temple in Kashi is open, to the best of my knowledge, only 2 days after Diwali in a year, and you have the whole shingar with sweets and other items. But this item is extremely interesting, of a mother goddess feeding her children humanity, and that is what you sort of. She has inspired other such iconography in the Buddhist Tara and so on. But next one, please. This again is an interesting one, where you have a Vasudhara. And now Vasudhara again is a lady, as you can see, in her hand there is a sheaf of grain. So this again is uncooked food, but food which is being provided by a lady who identifies with Dharti, Vasudhara. And then we go to the next one, please. This is an interesting image because it shows Bhikshatan mudra of Buddha with an empty bowl. Now, what does the empty bowl signify? And the Buddha's story is well known. I wish we could. One of the earlier memories I have of, but it is not one of those great works of art. It was a calendar by J.P. Singhal where Sujata is giving a bowl of kheer to Buddha when he's coming out after his Gyan Prapti, and when he becomes Buddha from Siddhartha. This shows, let's get back to the first one. This Bhikshatan Mudra shows you a commander. Or it could be an empty nariyal, it could be whatever, half a cut nariyal, where anybody could put anything. And the person who was Bhikshanam Dehi मांग रहा था, वो खाएगा, उसे ग्रहण करेगा. And the other story about Buddha's death is that somebody put some rotten pork in him, and because he was a bhikshu, he was going out begging for alms, he could not refuse it, and he ate what was given, and he had the Mahaparinibbana. But the point is that this also tells us the lack of food puts an emphasis on what central role food plays in our life. So we must have a sense of detachment. We may have plenty, we may have food which is tasty, we may have food which is seasonal, regional, which makes us from pre-birth. I mean, I think there's an extremely nice verse, I think in Kathopanishad, which says, Nacha vittena tarpani yog manushya. Now, what does it mean? That money or gold cannot buy you liberation. Ultimately, it is a bit of food. It could be a pinda after death. It could be the annaprashan when the child is born. It could be what lactating mother, expecting mother is fed before the child is born, and throughout his life, as he goes through like the Krishna life cycle, from adolescence to youth to old age, the food changes what you should eat and what should not eat. This again is from the Ajanta paintings. The lady is offering something food to something. We don't know what the other part of the detail is, but we again have another thing where a story where Buddha goes and seeks for alms. And when the lady says, she says, I want Rahul, and takes Rahul with him, who becomes a monk. But then the next one, please. These are, interestingly, the illustrated Jain manuscripts. They date back to the 13th century, if I recall reasonably. And again, we think that the Jains don't eat relish taste. They don't eat this, they don't eat something which goes underground, they don't eat bahubiji, they don't eat shamvarni. They deny themselves taste. That's not quite true. If you see this, there is this Jain Muni who's being honored, and there is best of the choicest food given here. And what the believing Jains believe is that they only will have 21 morsels, and if anything goes wrong with one morsel, the food will stop. So you have to be extra careful about the purity of what you are giving and what is not polluted. And the muni has to be given like a food which is fit enough for the gods. So you have this. This again is an interesting thing. It is called Ahardan. This again is an illustrated Jain manuscript. Now, Ahardan is a very interesting concept. It says there are 4 kinds of dan: Ahardan, Aushadhi dan, Shastra dan, and Abhay dan. Now, Aushadhi is also a synonym for food because it keeps our body niramay without rogs, gives us immunity. And Shastra dan is, of course, Vidya dan, Gyan dan. And Abhay dan, of course, is freedom from fear of all kind. But what is the ultimate fear from freedom is the fear of freedom of hunger and famine, which leads to everything else. If the body is famished, you can't take advantage of a Shastra dan, you can't have Abhay dan. So this is something which is there, which I think which is something which in, not only in Jain concept, there is Devarina, Bhutarina, Pitarina, Gururina. So the concept of the debts which we must absolve as we conduct our journey through life is an important concept, and one part of that is food. Maybe you have the next one, please. Now this again is an interesting one. This interesting one is a panel which describes Tirthankar Deminath walking away from his wedding feast. He was a prince. Until that time he was a meat-eating prince. When he heard the cries of the animals which were going to be slaughtered for his wedding feast, this brought about a change of heart, and he gave up his kingdom, became a Jain Muni, and became a vegetarian. But this again is an interesting display of the kind of animal which were eaten in a princely household. So the Jains had one set of rules for the Tirthankars, obviously, and the Arhats and the Siddhas, one set for laity, but the laity also did not eat meat. But then there was a time when this meat eating coexisted happily with the Tirthankars themselves. Next one, please. Now this one is something about how we encounter a stray painting which tells us about how the festivities have remained the same. This is a holy celebration. And in the holy celebration, again you have food, and you can identify there is drink, so hopefully that is thandai. Here you have gujiyas, sweets, namak paras, and so on, sharbats at this time, and you have frolicking of food. So we have this continuity in seasons, and Holi, of course, is in Falgun, is a harvest festival. There is singing which goes around with this. Actually, somebody asked me, when you are talking of food and arts in India, why are you not talking of music and folk music and so on? I said, look, that's going to be very, very difficult. We are confining ourselves to visuals and plastic arts, and let's see what we can do with that. Maybe have the next one, please. Now, this is something which intrigues me no end. This is a painting dating back to, I think, 18th century, which shows Yashoda feeding Vasudeva, Krishna, Balaram, etc. Now, interestingly, Yashoda is not married to, obviously, Vasudeva. Vasudeva has a different set of wife. Yashoda has done that. And this is being fed to a person who is not her husband, children who are her foster children only. And again, you see food items here. You don't have to worry about identifying everything. But this also is a concept which takes you back to Tolstoy, that where you say that all happy families are alike, And all happy families are ones who eat together. If you eat together, the family stays together. So whether it is a foster family, whether it is a family which seems to have some incongruous factual details here, but it is there. And next one, please. Now, this again is an interesting Krishna's picnic. Now, this is Krishna somewhere between his stern, kingly mudra at Nagdwara. He is still an adolescent, but a late adolescent, eating and sharing food with Krishna in picnic. And you again see the items of food. There is some kind of rice here, there is some kind of a matki with ghee, makhan, etc. This looks like some kind of a vada. This looks like a different vada. This again is there. This is it chickpeas or was it? There are utensils which are there. What is he eating? I think it is futile to identify specific items of food. We'll do that a little later in the conversation. But I think what is important is the concept of sharing food, where hierarchies break. You step out of the space, confined space of home, and can be in a natural surrounding and enjoy. There is somebody eating here separately. Is it because of some hierarchical problems? No idea. But if you go to Banaras today, one of the more masti is Behti Alang. You also have the picnics which the Englishmen took into that, the garden parties. You also have picnics in the period of Sultanate and Mughals where you walked out and the food is enjoyed in natural surroundings, in harmony with nature, outside the formal restrictions of eating at place. Like you recall the earlier painting of Yashoda feeding Vasudeva and Krishna, etc. You follow an order. Who gets the first serving? Who gets the second serving? The sons get, in the patriarchal society, the sons get whatever. What is the daughter doing? And the next one, please. This again is one of those, my favorites. This is from Dalpatji Lal Tipatji Bhai Museum in Ahmedabad. This is laced here. 4 brothers end up in a forest. They are very hungry. They see a tree full of laden with food. One of them wants to knock down the whole tree, get all the fruit, end of story. Other one is doing it in the branches. Somebody is going into a lesser branch. This brother is more restrained. He is eating with the fruit which have fallen. This, I think, is a lesson in sustainable consumption. So if you cut down the tree, you might satiate your hunger, but your greed would ultimately leave no fruit for your need. So if you had this concept, it would be sustainable consumption. I think it's a very interesting one. Next one, please. This one again is a different period, different space. 2 noblemen entertaining each other. Again, you see what are the food items. There is emphasis on dried fruits, raisins, cashew nuts, walnuts, etc. Seasonal fruits here, you can keep identifying them. You also have other food here. You also have drinks and beverages. So this is what, again, is an interesting thing, that you do not depict in art what the common man is eating. You depict what the noble have been eating, because they are the ones who commission their paintings and portfolios and so on. But the interesting part is that then this food becomes aspirational and it filters down. So those who cook for the noblemen, the courtiers, do check out whether it's cooked properly or not. And the next one, please. This one again you see is a hunt scene. You can see an animal hunter. You see again the angethi mein sekai ho rahi kebab ki. But then you can see that how the kebab has evolved. In the first one we saw skewers and a kadai. They were probably being deep fried. Here you have them in angethi mein sik rahi kebab. And there is the person who is doing it. And you can see that pankhe sarha de raha hai. And you can do that. Next one, please. This again is a scene of hunt. Next one, please. There again, you see people entertaining each other, and you have a whole lot on the dastarkhan. Now, dastarkhan is something which you spread, and you think that dastarkhan is something which is typically Muslim way of eating. You spread something, but it is a spread. If you were eating in a Hindu household, you would have a kele ka patta or a thali, and that again would be a spread. And it would follow a certain ritual कि केले का पत्ता का कौन सा broad हिस्सा right hand side में जाएगा, कौन सा left में होगा, top half में क्या चीज़ जाएंगी, bottom half में क्या चीज़ जाएंगी, clockwise anti clockwise क्या चीज़ें रखी होंगी, how you eat it. अगर थाली होगी spread में तो थाली का special arrangement क्या होगा, उसमें आप क्या लेंगे क्या नहीं लेंगे, how the seconds would come, what would be the concept of equality or not equality or eating, it is not clear. This obviously is influenced by a Central Asian thing. So you have these faces which are Central Asian. These are probably imitating the Chaktai way of eating. The next one, please. This again is a very, very modern painting by this great lady. Yes, Abdullah Shengil. And this one I found very interesting is because the haldi. That is not a very clear picture, but you see women working and doing haldi. She has two things. She has a similar painting which shows women sitting by Saja Chula and gossiping. You have haldi being used for the bride's shringar. So haldi has vermicidal therapeutic qualities. It also has significance in auspiciousness. So you have haath peele kiye, chawal peele kiye. I mean, in Muharram there is Tarke Lazat, so you don't have Pila Chawal. But then the day when you have the Shahadat Abbas, you are having a celebratory meal, you put something yellow. If you are poor, you don't do that. This is the bride's thing being done. The bride's. Now, this is a much, much later painting at the turn of the century. I couldn't resist putting it in because it shows the fisherwoman at the turn of the century with a huge chunk of fish on her and walking away nonchalantly. Now, the fish has a very interesting role in our mythological Puranic tales. The lady who enchanted Shantanu was a Matsyagandha, a fisherman's daughter who smelt of fish. And she is also called Yojananda because the fishy smell would not leave her. And that is what led Bhishma to his pratigya that he would not marry and beget children. So Matsyagandha's children could become, and then the whole Mahabharata story comes down. Maybe the next one, please. This one is my favorite, and before I apologize for having inflicted on you my half-baked ideas for so long, this is my very interesting favorite. You have Radha and Krishna right there on top, enjoying themselves. And there is somebody else, a lady, cooking for them. Now, this caption on this picture was very interesting. It says, her luminous beauty illuminates the kitchen. It really illuminates the kitchen in more ways than one. How you see, he's putting in a particular utensil. She's an open chula with lakdi. There is a pair of sandesi calipers. You have a kadhai like bartan. You have a matka, interestingly shaped there. You have a rolling pin. You have a hammam dasta. All these things continue to be used till this day in our kitchen. But more interesting is something here. You see Benan and you see Parvan. And these are the things which set you thinking that what about the Columbian exchange? Is it true that everything came with the Spanish and the Portuguese? The amrud, the piara, the potato, the tobacco, the vanilla, everything. But then you come to think of it, it's not a question of saying Swadeshi kya hai, Videshi kya hai, but this is an interesting thing that you only have the pre-Columbian exchange vegetables here, which she is cooking here. So this debate can go on. I think I'll stop here, and I'll be very happy if there are any questions or comments. Thank you so much. They don't have to be questions, they can be disagreements, they can be comments, they can be whatever.
So my question kind of pertains to this painting only. Like you say that here you can see the vegetables that are generally thought to be coming into India after the Columbian exchange. My question is, how much in the artist's impression the vegetables he knows about influences these paintings? Because it can very well be possible that though he is depicting Krishna and Radha, the vegetables he is drawing, the settings he is drawing is probably things he has probably lived through, which is probably after the Columbian exchange, when the vegetables probably have come after the Columbian exchange. Maybe he's depicting things of his own times, with obviously Radha and Krishna in the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. A brilliant question. The problem is that we should have referred this to the Raja Ravi Verma paintings also. They were not trying to put in the painting something which was contemporaneous to their time. They were, because these incidents have been described in Geet Govindam for Radha Krishna. There has been for Valmiki Ramayana, there is texts which describe what they ate, how they lived. So Raja Ravi Verma and the painter, unnamed painter of this painting, were not putting something from their time there. That's why the fisher woman for contemporary times was put there. The Koli Ghati woman from Mumbai. These artists were probably researching and putting what they had read in a historical text like Valmiki Ramayana ki kya khaya. It's well known that Sita wanted that Sita Param Ruchira Mrig dekha, and Lakshman went out to hunt that, and that the Ram went out to hunt that, and Lakshman was supposed to guard her. But that is what the thing was. They knew that there were historical references to what people ate. So you were not putting things idly there. As far as the Columbian exchange is concerned, my problem with Columbian exchange is that you say they brought the chilies, they brought the maize. And Dr. Mani is sitting here. There is a great Gujri Rani ka Mahal at the foot of the Man Mandir in Gwalior, and where a person is eating something which is unmistakably a corn cob. Now, that is almost 400 years before the Portuguese set foot in this country. Now, similarly, you take the hottest chili in the world, the Bhut Jalakia, Naga chili, Raja chili. It is in beyond the Black Mountains in Bhutan and Delhi in Nepal. Can you imagine that they also brought with them the condor with 9 feet wingspan to take it and drop the bird seed in Bhutan? And also interestingly, you say they brought the potatoes, but we have references in Bhav Prakash Nigantu to indigenous things like Pindalu, Kachalu, Raktalu. So there was a variety of something in potato family growing here, which was cannibalized and it took roots and became like that. But about chili, I refuse to believe that the chilies were brought by Portuguese. Maize cob was born by this thing. Also interestingly, that the Portuguese ruled for 400 years more than the British ruled the rest of India in Goa. But you don't see Goan food the chilies. You don't see the Goan food the potato influence. And they brought the potato, it became a staple diet in Ireland where the famine caused the revolution. But you have a very interesting story therein, I think. I think that we tend to forget that Portuguese also brought something called Alfonso. And Alfonso de Albuquerque brought a mango which was grafted on a Ratnagiri mango, and it became a hapuss. But mango is indigenous to India. I mean, with most botanists agree. Of course, Chinese dispute everything. They would probably say that there was a mango there as well. But let's not get into that. So I do very strongly feel that there were a variety of things which existed in this country, and they were consumed before that. Now, here the artist is doing is, I'm not worried about the Columbian exchange here. I'm worried about is how many things interesting you can think of make of Bengal for a romantic couple up there. If you are a Bengali, you would say beguni, begun bhaja, achari begun, kalonji ka begun, namak ka begun Banaras mein. You could say begun ki tarkari with singdana in Maharashtra, khatta meetha, to be eaten with puran poli. You could even say that baghar ke begun in Hyderabad. You could say, if you are from Kashmir, sukwani, which is made of sun-dried begun with imli and gold. So, I mean, I'm more interested in that. What is she cooking? ये कल क्या रही उनके लिए क्या खाना बनाएगी जो तो वो कर रहे हैं ना खाना तो हमने खाना है तो अब उसके साथ बगल में परवल रखा है तो परवल का आप क्या करेंगे तो परवल तो 500 साल पहले परवल तो हिंदुस्तान में था बट परवल का डोलमा नहीं बनता था डोलमा derived from the word dolmantis which came with the Armenians 500 years when they were avoiding persecution in Armenia and this became a टमाटर का डोलमा इसका परवल का डोलमा in Lucknow. So maybe she is making a dulma which is still in her memory, but not prehistoric, not pre-Columbian. But what could you do with परवल? Maybe it's a sweet dish. आपने परवल की मिठाई अगर खाई है तो आजकल तो परवल की मिठाई मुंह में डालने लायक नहीं मिलती कहीं, उसमें ठसाठस खोया भरा होता है और चीनी भरी होती है. मगर अगर आपने असली परवल खाया है, जो दियारे का परवल होता है, छपरा के आसपास का, जो आपका परवल मुंह में डालते ही घुल जाता है, छोटा सा परवल होता है, उसको आपने उसके भीतर सिर्फ छेना भरा हो और उसमें सिर्फ हल्की परत चाशनी को मिश्री बर्फ पड़ी हो, उसका जो मजा है, तो maybe she's making a sweet dish out of that those parvels. So I was not worried about the culinary exchange. I was worried about the romantic couple and the lady trying to please them. Maybe she's envious. She's slogging in the kitchen. Her luminosity is being praised by the painter, but she is slogging her backside off for those prudent people up there. So I was more interested in that. Yes, sir. All questions are never foolish. Answers are foolish.
Namaskar. Listening to you is always a pleasure. My question is that now the art of cooking is being relegated to a very, very secondary activity for so many reasons. And the good reason is that our women are coming up and taking up much bigger responsibilities outside home. तो उसके बाद अब ये जो नई कल्चर है कि लड़की का जब इंट्रोडक्शन कराया जाता है लड़के के, हमारे पे क्या क्या गुण हैं वो बता सकते हैं कि वो ये जितने भी फूड होते हैं ये ऑर्डर कर सकती है. तो ये जो बदलाव आ रहा है कि आप ऑर्डर करेंगे और वो कहीं पर क्लाउड किचन है और वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है, तो ये जो अंतर है मेरी माँ का, मेरी बीवी के खाने का और क्लाउड किचन का, ये हमें कहाँ लेके जाने वाला है?
विजय भाई, आपका सवाल बहुत ही रोचक है और इसमें
मूर्ख है ना?
नहीं, सब आप बिल्कुल नहीं, मूर्ख तो मैं साबित होने वाला हूँ, मगर इसमें दिक्कत क्या है कि उलझा सवाल है. इसमें आप एक पीढ़ी को खा पचा रहे हैं बीच में कि हमारी आपकी उम्र जो है, उसमें दिक्कत ये है कि हम ये भूल रहे हैं कि डॉक्टर साहब भी मतलब 70 के फाटे को पार कर चुके हैं. मगर आप कल्पना कीजिए उस पीढ़ी की, ये कोविड के बाद की पीढ़ी है जिसने खाना ऑर्डर करना शुरू किया. आप घर के बाहर नहीं निकल सकते थे, खाने पीने का कष्ट था, तो आप ऑर्डर करते थे, खाना दरवाजे पर डोर स्टेप पर डिलीवर होता था. उसके पहले, कोविड के पहले शुरुआत हो गई थी जब जोमेटो और इन्होंने वो अपने दफ्तर के लिए बनाया, फिर वो ऐप पूरा अच्छा चल निकला. तो वो जब से ये हुआ है, ये ऑर्डरिंग वाली समस्या तो वहाँ से हुई है. उसमें लड़की एक गुण बहुत ज़बरदस्त है कि वो लड़की पति पत्नी होना ज़रूरी नहीं है. मेरे घर में मेरी 18 वर्ष की नातिनी है, उससे ही हमें पता चलता है कि कोरियन ऑर्डर करना है तो रामेन नूडल किसके अच्छे हैं, सुशी किसकी अच्छी है, जापानी खाना कहाँ अच्छा मिल रहा है, पिज्ज़ा टोसिनी का अच्छा है कि पिज्ज़ा, अब नवरात्रि का पिज्ज़ा खाने के लिए अगर आप बोराए हुए हैं तो आप कोटू के आटे का दही भरा पिज्ज़ा, उसमें पनीर के टिक्के भर के खा लीजिए और खुश रहिए. अगर आपने व्रत ही करना था तो फिर व्रत ही करते, पिज्ज़ा खाने की ज़रूरत क्या थी? तो ये तो एक पक्ष है ऑर्डरिंग का. मगर जिससे मुझे प्रॉब्लम है कि जो एक पीढ़ी बीच में लापता हो गई, वो पीढ़ी वो थी जो हमारे आपसे बाद की पीढ़ी थी. आपने बड़ा, यू सेड समथिंग वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग कि माँ के हाथ का खाना, भाभी के हाथ का खाना, बहन के हाथ का खाना. हम में से कितने ऐसे सौभाग्यशाली हैं जिनकी उम्र 30 और 35 की है? दुर्भाग्य से इस देश में जनगणना नहीं हुई है 2011 से, मगर अगर आप कल्पना करें कि इस देश की आधी से अधिक आबादी उन लोगों की है जिनका जन्म 21वीं सदी के बाद हुआ है, जो 60% लोग हैं. उनमें आप दुधुए बच्चों को छोड़ दीजिए, बूढ़ों को भी कुछ को छोड़ दीजिए, मगर बुनियादी तौर पर 27-28 साल की उम्र के वो लोग हैं जिन्होंने माँ बहन के हाथ का खाना खाया ही नहीं है. क्यों नहीं खाया है? क्योंकि हमारे घरों में बच्चा पढ़ने जाता था तो तब तक क्या माँ घर में खाना पका रही थी, या उनको फुर्सत थी, या तब तक ये शुरू हो गया था कि घर में एक बाई आएंगी जो रोटी डाल जाएंगी और माँ सब्जी वगैरह बना लेगी. मुझे ये बड़ा ब्लाइंड टेस्ट लगता है कि घर में आप रोटी खाइए. क्या आप आंख बंद करके बता सकते हैं कि आपकी माँ के हाथ की रोटी है, बहन के हाथ की रोटी है, या भाभी के हाथ की रोटी है? संभव है. क्योंकि माँ आटा जिस तरह गूंथती है उस तरह से कोई भी बाई जी जो घर में रोटी बनाने आती है वो 5 मिनट में आटा सान भी लेती है, रोटी गूंथ भी लेती है, बेल भी लेती है, तवे को फुला भी लेती है, गैस पे भी फुला देती है, आपको खिला भी देती है और रुखसत हो जाती है। बहन अपेक्षाकृत माँ से नहीं, मगर यदि उस जमाने की थी कि घर में पति के घर में कुछ खाना, उसमें उसके गुण ये भी हैं, तो कामसूत्र में भी खाना बनाना तो उन कलाओं में से एक है जो वधू को आना चाहिए। मगर मुझे लगता है कि उसमें एक और पक्ष है, ये सिर्फ विमेंस लिप के संग जुड़ा हुआ नहीं है। अब वो बच्चा बड़ा हुआ, वो पढ़ने बोर्डिंग स्कूल में चला गया या कहीं इंजीनियरिंग पढ़ने चला गया, कहीं बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटी में चला गया, अब उसका घर का खाना छूट गया। जब वो घर मुखर्जी नगर में आईएएस की तैयारी करने आया तब भी घर का खाना छूट गया, टिफिन आता है पैक करके, वाजी वहाँ से आता है, या वहाँ कोई लिट्टी चोखा बेचने वाला आ गया। अब जब वो छुट्टियों में घर आता है तो घर का खाना खाने की उसे फुर्सत नहीं है। वो उसकी माँ तो उसकी पसंद का खाना बनाने की कोशिश कर रही है, मगर वो बाहर दोस्तों के संग खा के आ रहा है, मैं खा के आ गया हूँ, मैं सो गया हूँ। अब वो नौकरी की तलाश में जब जाता था, आप बेंगलोर ले लीजिए, कोई बड़ा शहर ले लीजिए, तो वहाँ आपको लिट्टी चोखा भी मिल जाएगा, वहाँ आपको मोमो भी मिल जाएगा, वहाँ आपको पूरी भी मिल जाएगी, वहाँ आपको कबाब भी मिल जाएगा, वहाँ आपको तंदूरी खाना भी मिल जाएगा। अब दुर्भाग्य ये हुआ कि मैं हाल में जब बेंगलोर गया तो मैंने उससे कहा भैया मुझे मैसूर रवा डोसा दे दी। तो बेंगलोर में उसने उससे कहा थोड़ी देर लगेगी, 15-20 मिनट लगेंगे। मैंने कहा मैं बैठा हूँ। उसके कुछ देर बाद वो आया, उसने कहा, उसने आप भरूंगा क्या मैं भीतर? मैंने कहा मैंने भैया मैसूर रवा डोसा कहा था, उसमें भरने की कुछ नौबत होती नहीं। मैंने कहा मैंने मैसूर मसाला डोसा कहा होता रवे के संग तो तुम भर के कुछ लाते। तो मुझे बड़ा विचित्र लगा कि जो जन्मभूमि है डोसे की, इडली की, मैसूर मसाला डोसे की, वो आपको उसके भीतर चॉकलेट भर के दे देगी, उसके भीतर पनीर भर के दे देगी, उसके भीतर पालक भर के दे देगी, उसके भीतर कीमा भर के दे देगी, और कुछ दिल कड़ा अगर तमिल ब्राह्मण अपने बच्चों को बुद्धिमान बनाना चाहते हो अंडा भर के दे देगी, मगर वो मैसूर रवा डोसा आपको नहीं खिला सकता है। तो ये मुझे लगा कि हमारा जो खाना लुप्त हो रहा है उसका एक कारण ये है, एक पैन इंडियन पैलेट भी इस बीच पनपा है। सन 90 के दशक से आज तक मेरे ख्याल में आपको तंदूरी चिकन लद्दाख में भी मिल जाएगा, अंडमान निकोबार में भी मिल जाएगा, आपको वही पनीर मसाला डोसा वहाँ भी मिल जाएगा, ऊपर भी मिल जाएगा, मोमो आपको सब जगह मिल जाएगा, उसके भीतर नूडल भी मिल जाएंगे, उसके भीतर चॉकलेट भी मिल जाएगा, सब कुछ आपको मिल जाएगा। तो ये कष्ट है कि घर का खाना नष्ट हो गया है। और घर का खाना जो नष्ट हुआ है, तो एक अंतिम बात में जिसमें जोड़ना चाहूँगा, ये ऐसा नहीं था कि महिलाएं ही घर में खाना बनाती थी, और ऐसा नहीं था बेचारे पिटे पटाए पति ही खाना बनाते थे। होता क्या था कि घर का खाना महाराज बनाता था, या बड़े घरों में संयुक्त परिवारों में अनफॉर्चुनेट विधवाएं खाना बनाती थी, जो रसोई के कोने में बैठती थी। ब्राह्मण परिवारों में सबसे सवेरे पहाड़ में भी ठंडे पानी से नहाती थी, आज सिले वस्त्र में एक साड़ी में बैठती थी और खाना पकाती थी, और उनकी उम्र ऐसी होती थी कि वो रजस्वला नहीं होती थी। तो किचन में प्योरिटी और पोल्यूशन का कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं था, बाकी लोग दरवाजे में बैठ के अपना खाना देते थे, और जो लोग खाने जाते थे उस रसोई में वो भी नहा के जाते थे, संध्या पूजा करके जाते थे, चौके में बैठ के खाते थे, और वो खाने का जो रिवाज था ना, उसमें खाने का अपना स्वाद था, क्योंकि वो खाना एक ही तरह से बनता था, वो मौसम के अनुसार बनता था। जैसे देखिए पहाड़ में, आप सब लोगों का पहाड़ का अनुभव है, एक साग बनता है जिसको टपकिया कहते हैं। तो टपकिया मतलब पालक बड़ा स्वादिष्ट है, मगर इतनी मात्रा में नहीं कि सब भरपेट उससे खा सकें। तो आपको चटनी जिसे खाने को मिलती है उतना भर मिलेगा, आप बाकी खाना खाएंगे और फिर एक टपक उसका लगा देंगे और कहेंगे पालक खा लिया, बड़ा स्वादिष्ट है। और उसमें जो आपका सवाल है उसमें एक और विचित्र पक्ष है, जो सवाल खाने में पड़ता था। अब वो कर्मकांडी ब्राह्मण जो होता था, दुर्भाग्य से इसमें बड़ी व्यवस्था आती है, वो लहसुन प्याज नहीं खाता था, मगर खाने में मजे वही चाहता था जो लहसुन के आते हैं। तो उसने अपनी हींग का व्यवस्था की। अब अगर हींग खाते खाते उगता गया तो उसने जम्बू जो तिब्बत से आता था, आप परिचित, उस घास को खाना शुरू किया। फिर उससे जब मन भर गया तो दुल खाया, फिर गदरेणी खाई, गढ़वाल में जखिया खाया। अब ये सब चीजें खाने को स्वादिष्ट बनाती थी और गरीब आदमी के भोजन को स्वादिष्ट और पौष्टिक बनाती थी। अब हमने जो गरीब आदमी का खाना था वो तो प्रधानमंत्री ने जब तक शेर ने नहीं कहा, किसी को याद ही नहीं था कि बाजरा गुजरात में खाया जाता है, राजस्थान में खाया जाता है, ज्वार दक्खन में खाया जाता है, वलुआ पूर्वांचल में खाया जाता है, रागी कर्नाटक में होली के खाते हैं। ये सारी चीज़ें हम लोगों ने बिसरा दी कि हमने चूंकि अपने खाने को भुला दिया है, और हमारा जो एस्पिरेशनल खाना था जो हमारे शासक खाते थे वो हमने खाना शुरू कर दिया, तो खाना बचेगा कैसे?
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। इतने स्वादिष्ट व्याख्यान के बाद मुझे नहीं लगता कि मेरे छोक भरी टिप्पणी का कोई अर्थ भी रहेगा। सो आई थिंक मेरे शब्दों को मैं पूर्ण विराम देते हुए मैं आप सभी को चाय पे आमंत्रित करती हूँ। बट आई वुड ऑल्सो लाइक टू ड्रॉ योर अटेंशन टुवर्ड्स आवर ongoing exhibition, which is a photographic exhibition curated by photographer Vijay Kranti sir. So this would be a visit around the Buddhist site Akhnur from Jammu and Kashmir. The excavations were undertaken under the leadership of our Director General Professor B.R. Mani Saab. So I urge you to please have a look at the exhibition.